Stephen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much, Dinora, to the various participants from wherever you are. My name is Stephen Mudibo. I'm currently an advocate of Kenya. I am an UC alumni, graduated in 2020, and it's a pleasure meeting you today. We'll discuss more about my journey. Thank you.
Gwen?
Hey, hello everyone. I'm indeed elated to be here. My name is Gwenelyne, but I commonly go by Gwen. That's the short form, Gwen Achu. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity to share my experience after the LLM program. I'm from Cameroon originally. I'm a lawyer called to the Nigerian bar and the Cameroon bar, but right now I'm doing a research fellowship program at the Center for Law and Innovation in Kigali, Rwanda. That's in East Africa, right?
So let me just say just a very brief introduction about the University of Cincinnati College of Law and our LLM program. So the University of Cincinnati College of Law is the fourth oldest law school in the United States. Our student body is every year approximately 400. Most of those students are in our 3-year JD, which is the traditional law school in the United States, which follows a bachelor's program, bachelor's degree. We also have an LLM program, a 1-year master's in law that allows students, lawyers, individuals with a legal training background from countries all over the world to come to Cincinnati and study side by side our JD students for 1 year. Our LLM students have come from more than 60 different countries at this point, including Kenya, Cameroon, Uganda, Chad, Ghana, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone, to name just a few of these 60 plus countries. Once students are with us, they choose classes focusing on business law, international legal studies, criminal law, intellectual property, and really the whole range of legal content areas. At this point, we have graduates. We are very proud of our graduates all over the world who are working at universities, non-governmental organizations, governmental legal offices, multinational companies, and a full range of law firms. The very best part of my job is when I get to reconnect with students who have been away from Cincinnati for quite some time. So today is a real highlight for me, and I am just thrilled to get to spend time with all of you on the call, but in particular, Gwen and Stephen. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your journeys since you left Cincinnati. And thank you everyone for being here. If anybody has questions about the LLM program, either while watching today or folks who watch the recording later, my colleague Mika Clincy, who's also on the call, and I will be sure to put our names and email addresses in the chat so that you can reach us easily. That's all from me.
All right. Thank you so much, Nora. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction of the LLM program. And for me, it was really, an amazing experience being part of the LLM program. Not just because I got a scholarship, which really took like almost, half of the school fees, well, more than half, I think, of the school fees, but it was actually a life-changing experience as a lawyer from Cameroon coming into the US, a total different legal system, a total different jurisdiction, and still being able to, maneuver my way into the legal system and even get some work experience. And I think when I was talking with Stephen, on private line about this webinar. These are some of the exciting experiences we're sharing, and we thought that it would actually be nice to share it with our audience so that they can actually know what to expect if you're considering maybe pursuing an LLM program in the US, especially. We highly recommend University of Cincinnati. Or if you're just in the LLM program but you're figuring out what next, so maybe our stories can inspire you. So without further ado, I'll just have David and Stephen, sorry, to tell us a little bit about his journey ever since he graduated from the program. A highlight about Stephen is that he came to the University of Cincinnati as a Fulbright fellow. I'm sure that's how they call it. He will tell us more about it and how he was able to navigate that route to get into University of Cincinnati, and what have you done afterwards.
Right. Thank you very much, Gwen. Can you hear me? Sure. Okay.
Yes,
So,
we can hear.
sure, sure. Just to delve into to give you about my journey, I first of all, before I joined the UCLM program, I was at a stage in my life where I needed to pivot and transition to the next stage of my career plans. And to just inform you, before I joined UC, I had also done an LLM program in my local university. But I realized that there's nothing, I had not yet pivoted as I had wanted. So I told myself it's time to look abroad. And so I went scouring through the internet, looking for especially UK and US universities. But I found favor with most US universities. And ultimately, I looked through different states. I got to understand how the LLM program works, and until ultimately I landed on UC Law. Because one thing that I got to realize from various of LLM friends who studied LLM abroad, especially in the US, they are saying the of course in any program the return on investment is very important. And so for me it was which university will give me the best return on investment and also will help me have a good student experience. Student experience means studying at the university with quality professors and also the general student life. So I realized that Ohio, especially Cincinnati, was an ideal place because the cost of living was actually very favorable. And like some of my friends went and studied in New York, they were all about books, and the life was a bit difficult for them. So they didn't quite give. I mean, the experiences were a bit different with much challenges than I had. So lucky for me, when I was looking through the UC website, I saw that UC has great partnership with the Fulbright program. So I say that was it also enlightened me about the Fulbright program. So I decided to apply in my local station that is in Nairobi, Kenya, and we went through rigorous interviews. And amongst the schools I selected was UC. So when now Dinora reached out to me, trying to uh, tell me about the program and more, I became excited about it. So after the rigorous now interviews with the U.S. Embassy in my country, finally I was selected. There were three of us. Others went to other universities, but I was lucky I got UC. I was like, finally, this thing is a reality. And Fulbright program means you're getting a full scholarship, stipend, and accommodation. So now fast forward to now the experience in the university. I my career plans was to do international business transactions and IP, because I was really excited about IP law in my country, Kenya. IP law is a niche that, okay, Kenya is considered a country that is in relative to the East African region, is well versed with technology and all that. So I was like, I wanted to venture into this field and also have knowledge in international business transactions. So one thing I would appreciate about UC was the idea that the professors were top notch and the classes were very much interactive. Like, you'd have the LLM students joining with the JD students. Okay, in US, the JD is the traditional law program for US students, but the LLM is specialized as we know it out there. So the interactions between the LLMs and the JDs gave me a great perspective and nourished my experience in UC until ultimately when I graduated. I got to realize, I got to work at UC actually connected me with a law firm. And actually, at that time when I was graduating, it was during the COVID period. So you can imagine life was very difficult. Everybody is like the world had shut down. I'm looking at everybody around me. People are like, what do we do next? But UC came through with the connections they had. They connected me with the the partner law firm, which is called Rathbone Group. I was able to do a legal fellowship for 9 months because my program Fulbright did require me to do until that time, and I learned quite a lot. So you can imagine when people didn't have jobs, even some of the U.S. students, I had something to do. So which I really appreciated, and you see, and these are the things that made me feel that this is a proper return on in my investment. And until then, um, that's when I transitioned back. So Gwen, do you want me to continue, or maybe I can speak about now post LLM, or I can just go, you can continue.
Yeah, I'm just going to highlight a little bit about my experience there, since we're talking
Yeah.
about the opportunities
Yeah.
UC Law provided to us before, moving on in our careers. So for me as well, at the time, I don't know if they still have the program now, which I'm sure they do. We had this externship program where you have like 4 months in the second semester to get practical work experience, either in a US law firm or in maybe companies or in the bank, or basically corporate institutions where you can get hands-on experience. And it was done in return for class credits. So for me, I chose that part. And through the partnership with UC Law and Fitted Bank, that's the corporate headquarters, I was able to do my externship at Fitted Bank for like 4 months. And it was such an amazing experience because after that, I moved on to do the OPT. A lot of people were going back right after, but for me, I was like, I wanted to just see what opportunities I can get in the US before maybe moving back home because I had already started my legal practice at home. And because of the experience I had at Fitted Bank, then I was able to get a role at a law firm in New York. And I worked there for like the 1 year period of OPT before deciding to, go back home and then continue the legal journey. So these are some of the experiences that I had from UC Law. And now what is peculiar is the fact that both of us had, slightly different paths because you came as a Fulbright scholar. For me, I came as an independent student, and I came trying to navigate my way. I knew I wanted to practice corporate law, but I wasn't very sure of what area of corporate law. So while we were in school, then we could do courses like corporations, international business transactions. And then with the experience in real life scenarios, it kind of tailored my mind into what I really wanted to do. So I think those are some benefits that can really help people who are, confused about what exactly they want to do. And these externship programs, were not just only for people in the corporate sector. So depending on what area of interest you're passionate about, then you can decide. Because we had people who were working with the Ohio Innocence Project. So basically, I know that that was a project where you take, I think like it was almost legal aid. You take these criminal cases and then you work on them and try to, set the criminals free and all of that. For those who are criminal lawyers, they can actually understand. But yeah, we had some classmates who did the work with the Ohio Innocence Project, and even after graduation, they worked again with the Ohio Innocence Project for like 1 year, and then a couple of them moved ahead to take the Ohio bar, and now they're practicing in Ohio. All right, so I just wanted to share that before moving on to now the international experience. All right, so for you, why did you decide to move back home? Was it because you were a Fulbright scholar and you were required to go back home? Or had it always been on your mind that, okay, I just want to study, and after that, I'll go back home and continue practice? How was it for you?
Thank you, Gwen. For me, despite the Fulbright program requirement to return to the country, I already had it in mind that I wanted to come back home. And the reason for this was because I was very particular about, I saw opportunities, especially intellectual property, whereby so many, yes, at that time, Kenya was, a few big law firms which was tapped on, because I once interned for one big law firm, and I realized that for me to scale up to the level whereby I would add much value to the clientele, it was quite hard for me just as an as a trainee, and I needed to arm myself with the IP skills. And where best will I get this knowledge? It was in the US. So I knew that there was a market for me. And so I think I didn't even mention this, that even before I left for the US, I already was doing my groundwork back home. So it wasn't like I'm just transitioning and trying my luck out there. No, I already had my done some homework, groundwork, and I realized there's an opportunity coming back. So when I came back, IPUS was my, and international business transactions was my thing. But I later realized that, of course, during coming back during COVID, there things are tough, and I mean, I had to, the diversity, the agileness that I had, I ventured into a different field, and I didn't think I would do, I didn't think I would do litigation, but it was the opportunity that came first. Before now, my main opportunity, which is working in one of the top tier savings and credit cooperatives in Eastern Central Africa as the head of the legal unit there. So yeah, so that was, I will say that it was those challenges and those mindsets that I had back then that shaped where I am now.
Thank you so much. I think I have like a similar story, because for me at some point I was just like in an ocean. Yes, I knew that I wanted different opportunities. I knew that I wanted to take my legal practice to another level, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it in the US or in Cameroon. So for me, I was actually just exploring. And at some point I felt like, okay, probably I should, after the LLM, I was qualified for the PhD. I even applied for a PhD program, and I wanted to, follow that route. But then I felt like with my experience at Fitted Bank and even in the law firm in New York, I saw that there's probably more that the corporate world has to offer for me than getting a PhD like right after school. And that's how I decided to start working. And the truth is, to get into the corporate sector in the US, especially as a foreign trained lawyer, is not as easy as we think. I admire those who have actually gotten in. It's not as easy as we think, to be honest, but it's very possible, because the classes which we did tailored us to be able to take the New York bar or the Ohio bar, and some people have actually taken it and succeeded. But now the issue is, what is your goal? What was the goal of are you just taking the bar just to practice in the US, or did you have something back home that you're looking forward to? Because for me, I saw that in the US there's so many people. There are like, I don't know, maybe over 10,000 lawyers and more, doing so many amazing things. So for me, I felt like I'll just be one in the multitude, and there's not much I could do. But back home, I'll instead be one in like a few who have, had the exposure. And then when you come back home, you have the advantage of being legal counsel on international transactions, because, immediately some companies see that, oh, this person studied in the US, she has this level of exposure, they'll definitely want to bring in retainer agreements, or they want to retain your services. So for me, that was like the broader picture. But actually, it took a little bit of, hesitation to make this decision. But for me, I found that, going back home, beginning my practice, and being able to just put myself out there, like, okay, but I've been to the US, I've studied my LLM in corporate law, and this is what it is. So I ended up working at a good corporate firm in Lagos, Nigeria. And after that, that was when COVID happened and everywhere was closing down. So I moved back to Cameroon and then started a law firm with a couple of friends, and that's what has been happening since. So I would like to know from you, um, also, apart from the fact that you went back and now you're working in this in the corporate sector, what advice will you give to current students who are looking to leverage their LLM for non-traditional legal paths, right? Like right now, we have lots of AI going on. We have a lot of data privacy, cybersecurity, and all of that. So what advice will you give current LLM students looking to leverage, yeah, some of these pathways?
So yeah, thank you. That's a very important question. Yeah, we're living in a globalized society, and opportunities come in different directions. So I would say first, if you want to pivot to a different, non-traditional legal field, it's important for you to understand what the basic requirements of working in such an environment are. That will give you, for example, because lawyers were not per se heavy with we're not consumers of numbers. Sorry to say, I think that's the term. We basically just work on understanding documents and the logic behind cases and all that. So, for example, if you're going to a non-traditional course like I've seen, there are some, let's say, management consulting. You're going to work for PwC, McKinsey, or whatever field you're going into. You would realize that yes, they welcome all types of disciplines, but you must also show that you also have arithmetic abilities. You can comprehend numbers. So for you, it's important, first of all, to keep an open mind. And having an open mind is to have an agile mindset, meaning that things will be thrown your way because you're not used to this field. But if you can adapt quickly, I think then you will benefit yourself. And if you're a fast learner, the better for you. You're going to grasp things quickly, and even the people who hire you know that you're not necessarily cut out for this field, but you've shown something that shows that you have that desire to venture into these non-traditional courses. So as in a nutshell, it's just generally understanding where you are, what skill sets you have, because you'd agree with me that the skills we get from being a lawyer is great communication skills, problem solving, and logical thinking. This just amounts among the skills that we gain from that. So if you have those skills, I believe those skill sets are transferable in most of these non-traditional courses. So you just need to use those skills, uh, then figure out what else do I need to add to support my transition to this new field, so that at least your value addition not stack up into that field and you feel you wasted your time, and challenges come your way. So yeah, primarily I would say that just know what is required in that field, see what skill sets you have and that are transferable, and then those skill sets that you don't have, try to arm yourself with the same, so that you can add value to the organization you're transitioning to.
Amazing. Before we go forward, there's just a question that came to my mind, because I remember that a lot of things that stop African students from wanting to, pursue studies like in the US and the UK, also comes with the heavy demand, like of this international English test, because some African countries are not considered English speaking. Because I remember for Cameroon, we are the less population, like 20% of the entire population speaks English and 80% speaks French. So many times other countries consider Cameroon a French-speaking country, whereas that's not the case. So how were you able to navigate this, like IELTS, International English Language Testing System? Was it a hurdle for you as a prerequisite for getting admission into a US law school? Was it even required? And also, the second part of this question is, how did you navigate your application process into UC Law?
Thank you, Gwen. To start with the first question, how I navigated the English language tests. So I think because of the what I would say generally, uh, certain universities in the US, a good number of universities know the caliber of students they want to bring in. So they know people from in the African region. I usually see there are certain countries such as South Africa which get waivers on this English language tests. Kenya also gets waivers, provided you show that the mode onto which your studies was conducted in the English language. So if you studied for 4 years undergrad and the mode of teaching was in the English language, then you usually would get a waiver on that if your university writes such a thing. But for me, I still had to do it nevertheless, joining UC, because then again, doing these English language tests sometimes give you an edge if you perform very well. It can give you an edge and support you in terms of getting a scholarship, because in as much as they're testing the language, there are also additional skill sets that are tested there. Maybe say somebody who's keen in paying attention to the instructions that come in a fast way and such thing. The additional skill sets that this English language test on individuals. So for me, I still had to do it, and I actually took it twice, because the first time I think when I did it, the person next to me was too noisy. I had my own challenges. So but then but and that time you can't just stop somebody. He's also trying to get himself through. He's also looking for the same opportunity or even something else. So I had to take it twice, and apparently my scores became good. And I think those were some of the considerations that got me into UC. Just remind me the last question you had asked.
Yeah, so the other question was, how did you navigate your application process? Did you apply
Oh,
like directly to the school, or you just applied through a central system and then the school picked you?
great. So because of the Fulbright program, how they conducted the application process was, uh, yes, they required me to have all this essays, and they required me to do this English language test. They even required me to do the GRE, graduate record exam, which is not really in most LLM programs. It's not a requirement, but because this is a big scholarship, a full scholarship, so you had to prove that you're competitive. So I did all those standardized tests. In terms of the applications, they usually ask the same questions in terms of why do you want to do this course. They even go further and ask what have you. They want somebody who is really passionate about, because when they sponsor you, they expect that you go get the skills and then you add value to your home country. So they will ask me like, um, what are the challenges in your country, so how do you intend to navigate them if you get this scholarship, you see. So of course I was very passionate about, at that time I think it was the idea of cybercrime, sorry, cybersecurity, and a bit of intellectual property. We had issues in my country with regard to um, uh, how the act was in violation of the constitutional rights of various individuals, and it was all in the media, and even the interviewers. So I think my story and how I put it out there was quite motivating to them, and including also the standardized tests and all that. So that's what brought me on board. But I would say it was not any short from the traditional application that UC usually gives. I still had to give my transcripts. I still had to give my CV. I still had to put an essay. In fact, I had like 3, 4 essays, because they used the traditional one, why an LLM, and then why this scholarship, why you do better. So I even did more. So for me, I would say that's how I navigated it. And of course, I did a bit of research. So in any application, you always have to do much of the research and also speak to alumni. So I generally spoke with, I think I spoke with one alumni of UC. I can't remember the name, but I also spoke with other LLM students in my country who studied abroad to just get a general perspective of what do US law schools expect during the application? How do I stand out to be competitive? So yeah, that's how I put in my applications. Of course, we all cross our fingers, and yeah, you hope for the best. And I found myself in UC.
Amazing, amazing. So, I mean, we really have completely different stories of how we got into UC. Because for me, I was just so there's this law school admission council, LSAC. So I sent all my documents to LSAC, a general personal statement about wanting to do corporate law, masters, and what I hope to achieve after my LLM back home. So a couple of schools reached out, and UC was one of them, because I believe LSAC, uses because you pay like I think a service fee to LSAC, and then they use your like one application and then send it to multiple law schools that are connected to the system, and then the law schools reach out. Some other law schools will expect you to pay an additional application fee directly to their school, but for UC Law, there was no application fee. So they reached out, and then we started the conversations. For me, other schools actually expected that I should do the IELTS, but I said I have studied in English for all my life. I'm a native speaker of English. I was born in English, basically. So this is the same thing I told Zenora, and she actually scheduled an interview. So during the interview, I think it was basically to test my language abilities. So we just had like a general conversation. Why do you want to do this program? Tell me about yourself, and those kind of questions. And then I think she was able to see my language abilities. Then after that, they waived the IELTS for me. So I did not have to take the IELTS. That was a whole burden lifted off my shoulders financially and otherwise. Yeah, so that's how it worked for me. And then I got in. So at that time, it was like a competition, especially for tuition rates. And UC was one of the schools that had the lowest tuition compared to the other schools that had given me admission. And on top of the tuition, they gave me a higher scholarship compared to the other schools. So that's how I was like, okay, I'll take the best. And then plus the reputation, I saw on the website the third oldest law school in the US and all of that. So I was like, okay, let's see what we can make out of it. And that's how it worked for me, and I got in. So there are some challenges along the way of application, but I think they can easily be, you can easily glide over them when you probably have like the right essays and all of that. So it shouldn't be a hindrance to you. Okay, so I also have a question to you. When you went back home, was it difficult to reintegrate into the market? Like you've been away for, I think, 1 year. You had been away for like 1 year, 9 months. So was it easy? Did you find it challenging to get back into the market and get on your feet again?
Yes, I will not want to put it out to people that it was easy, but I will say mine was even, I believe, my experience could have been more difficult than Gwen's. I don't know about her experience, but I would say because I came back in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So straight back when I was doing my second semester um, um, at UC, that's when the COVID pandemic just about started. And then now, even while working at the legal fellowship, doing my legal fellowship, I was still working remotely because because of COVID, I couldn't work from the office. And even coming back, it was quite difficult. I was speaking with my brother all that time, and he was telling me, man, this place, you better just stay there in the US. It's a bit difficult. But I would say when I came back, I had already, at least for me, noting the challenges that were out here, especially in Kenya. I was already had a few steps in mind. So I told myself, I'm giving myself 3 months out to try my best and get a job. Because even where I used to work, they had laid off people, and everybody was just like, most of my peers in the legal field had, they had lost their jobs, and they had, set up their law firms. And I mean, everybody was just kind of like on their own. They had to find some footing. You just had to survive. So for me, it was not easy, because I remember the first place where I got a job. Oh my, I don't know if I should say this. I was not paid for 2 months. So it was quite challenging. But but these things, that's what I'm saying. If you have a resilient, if you're resilient and you have this grit and you are determined to succeed, I was very much sure that my UC degree cannot let me down. And once the economy started opening up like 6 months out, 8 months out, when I was applying for jobs, I was surprised that even some of these big law firms that I would not get in, I was being called for interviews, and in fact I got offers from two. That I think one of them was this Bowman's, and the other one is called Africa Legal Network. So after that, but because now the current employer where I am actually did give me an offer. I said, and it was in a position that is to be the head. I found that of the legal unit, I found that to be quite an interesting position, and that's why up to now, say almost 3 years out, I'm still in the current organization. I've grown in it. Small things. When you come back, you expect people. Sometimes people expect that you just, everybody, I think, may not necessarily be in the African setting, that they believe once you come back from the US, you already your pockets are full of money. You are just there to succeed. You should give them money, but they don't see the reality of you while you're transitioning. That you also need a bit of hand holding, just a bit, so to get yourself through, especially for me because of the COVID period. But here I am. I was able to buy a good car. I was even started constructing a house. So you see all these things open up over time. So you just have to have that, as I say, resilience, because in the African setting, or if you go back to developing countries, it becomes like, yes, I've been here, but with experience in the US, you come back and you see life slightly in a different perspective, and you're like, well, I have to adapt to the environment that I'm now in. Things might not be the same. There's bureaucracy, there are all these challenges. So it's up to me to be the change that I want to be. And that means that you have to be understanding and manage your expectations as well. And if you're just patient, and if you're a believer like me, you trust in God, trust you me, something will come your way. Yeah.
That's really amazing. I like the fact that you mentioned resilience because the truth is, being an African, I don't know how many Africans are here on the call, but from our perspective, people believe that when you've studied abroad, when you've stayed abroad, you just should remain there. You have lots of money, there are lots of opportunities. So the moment I got back home, everyone was like, "Why are you home? Like, why? Are you crazy?" And I had months of that. And also the job market was not very welcoming at the start, because we have a system, especially, well, in most French speaking African countries, they have this bureaucracy where we think that it's still the older generation that should handle things. So I struggled with getting into some sectors. I really wanted to work in the legal department of a bank because, I mean, I had this experience working at Fitted Bank in Cincinnati. But every time I placed my application, even in the interview, it was like my credentials, since you're coming from abroad, you're trying to intimidate the people who are there. So it wasn't welcoming. But like you said, there was a lot of resilience that had to come into play, because sometimes it actually took me to go in as an intern like, forget the fact that I was a lawyer and all of that. And then I had to calm down a little bit. So get in as an intern, and then opportunities started opening. For me, what I've experienced is that anywhere I put my CV, I always get a call back. Like here in Africa, if there's anything I'm applying for, the moment I put my CV, the UC, Masters of Law, Corporate Law, University of Cincinnati, they're always interested. Maybe at the end of the day, I can get the offer and it's not what I expected, or maybe they have like a conflict of candidates and then they're like, okay, you were a good candidate, but we thought we'll rather go with this other candidate because of so. But I've never got like, it's been difficult. I wouldn't say I've never, but it's been difficult to get a complete rejection. I always make it to the last stage of the interview. But for now, I decided to focus on my own private practice and build up my career from there. Now, in my own private practice, I've discovered that there are many times when I've had clients from the US, from different countries. They reach out and, most of them, they're not sure of who they can trust to handle some, kind of transactions in Africa. But then when they visit your website and then they see your credentials, they're like, oh, she actually studied in the US. So for me, that's how it has worked for me, because I'm in private practice. And in private practice, we need clients. We live by clients. We need their money to go by every day. And studying in the US with the exposure that I had has actually helped me to get some good files. Yeah, so that's my own part of the site. Okay, we are almost at the end of this because we're hoping that it's just going to be an hour. But I don't know if there's some burning questions, if the participants have any questions that they would like to ask. I think we'll give a few minutes. You can unmute your mic and ask any questions before we go. Are there any questions? Do we have anybody who probably is concerned about how to transition after graduation, or are you trying to explore legal entrepreneurship? We would like to hear, any question or any feedback of this webinar.
While people might be thinking of questions, I will ask one.
Okay.
It's just been marvelous to hear you telling your story, a bit of reminiscing about Cincinnati and how that shaped your career, and your stories of resilience and absolute success. So that's been just so much fun to hear. My question is, I'm wondering if there's any particular moment, memory, or lesson you learned during the LLM program at Cincinnati that has stuck with you, that you think about from time to time and has shaped either you as a person or you as a professional?
All right, I have one at the top of my list. Okay, so a moment that really stood out for me and really made me to know about a path of my career, which I actually do now. So we had this course, legal writing. Yeah, I think it's legal writing. Yes. So in that class, we had to do presentations, and from the presentations we had to talk about, I think, legal history from our countries and all of that. And in one of those presentations, it was so interactive to the extent that I left that class saying I did not have the opportunity to get this kind of education while I did my bachelor's. And I was like, there's going to be a moment in my career where I will devote my time to training younger lawyers. Like, I remember, I think that the person who was taking that class was Dean Oliver. And there were some things, just listening to her sharing her experience from being a lawyer to transitioning into the law school. And she was teaching us legal drafting and all of those courses. So the activities we were engaged in really stuck with me. And I think 2 months ago, I actually did a training here. I facilitated the training for like a legal clerkship program for students from universities in Rwanda on legal drafting and contract review, those kind of things. So I just, for a moment, I remembered what she was doing in class. And I felt like, okay, this is actually what I said like maybe 9 years ago. That is a part of me. I didn't get the chance to really learn legal writing in a formal setting, to the extent that I know what to think, how, if I see a contract today, how I'm able to navigate the dots, to know if I'm being taken advantage of or not. So that's what really stuck with me. And I see myself doing it to other people, like training younger lawyers, even through webinars and other training workshops on legal review and legal drafting. Yeah, that's my highlight.
Well, for me, it was, I think it is something that many LLMs, whenever they come to the United States, they get taken aback by the mode of teaching, this Socratic mode of teaching. So back in my university, it was the professor just gives you the notes or teaches much, and there was not a much, I would say there's a bit of engagement, but that not much. So I think for me, what stuck up to me was, which I still take it back, is that even when you're in class, it's not always one-sided. It's an interactive discussion between the student and the professor. So this, even when I hone it very well, because even when I host events in my organization, it is always trying to reach out to the various participants. It's not always me making my presentations. I always engage them and ask them, okay, what is your perspective? And we have a discussion from that, and it becomes productive. So that mode of teaching also transitioned to my way of work and how I expect whenever I'm making a presentation, how I want people to be interactive so that it's not a one-way discussion. So that is on the academic side. I think the other thing that I would say I've taken back from the US, also from the social side, is the respect for order. Because I'll tell you for sure, I'm not saying that my country is chaotic. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm just saying is the systems in the US really work. So sometimes even when I was taking the bus, you'd realize that there is a process. The bus will come at a certain time. When you look at your app, there's a bit of order. So that thing really resonated with me when I went back to my country. I looked at the system and how things are working. Yes, I felt okay. We need a bit of reforms there, but I know I couldn't do it by myself. It will take a gradual process. But that order also helps in my daily life in terms of how I manage myself and family, how I manage my subjects at the office, my other staff members. So that respect for order and appreciating that there are processes that are built to work in a certain way. I think for me, that was one of the greatest takeaways from the US.
Right. Nora, I hope we're able to answer the question.
Those were excellent answers. Thank you so much. We'll see if anybody else has thought of a question they might have.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I'm still at work and the background is a little bit noisy because my colleagues are talking from the other side.
I'm sorry. I think there's a kind of echo. We can't really get you clearly.
I am using wireless microphone, headphones. That's the reason why they probably echo it. Let me try to disconnect it. And like I said, I have my colleagues, in the office.
Okay. Sheku, we still can hear you. There's a lot of noise in the background. Or maybe you can type, if you can type the question in the chat box.
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh,
Is
very
it
well. Yes.
okay? Like I said, I was using a wireless headphone. That's the reason. And pardon me, I have colleagues because I'm still at work. So these are talking, I mean, from the other side of the room, you know. My question is is it Modibo, Stephen? Modibo? Yeah, from
Yes, yes,
Kenya.
sure.
Yes,
Yes.
I heard you speak about intellectual property. I mean, I have interest in pursuing LLM in intellectual property, but sometimes it's quite um, difficult to really realize the opportunities that are there for intellectual property experts in Africa. Of course, I know
Right.
that in Europe and in America, there are a lot of opportunities for intellectual property experts, but I'm not really sure
Yeah.
of the opportunities out there for Africans, in Africa. Probably
Okay.
based on the fact that you did something and around that, you have some ideas on the opportunities that are available for Africans in Africa. And again, with regards the current ban or kind of restriction on international students being accepted in the US, I want to ask Madam Nora, to really allay our fears if somebody has intention to go to the US to study at the moment, whether it is easy for us to do that, based on the restrictions on, I mean, the visa restrictions. Yeah, what are
Okay.
the possibilities now?
Okay, thank you. It's Sheku. Thank you very much. With regard to opportunities in the IP space for Africans, I would say, from my experience, even starting out as an intern, I did manage to, my experience, I did manage to intern at one of the biggest law firms that deals with IP in Kenya, and that is biggest in in Central Africa. So there are opportunities, but most of the time, I think the opportunities come with, IP is divided into three. There's trademarks, generally trademarks, copyrights, and patents. So I would say most of the opportunities came through trademarks because many organizations, even if you start today, you'd want to trademark the mark that you have, the logo, the colors, the name, and all that. So that is a very common thing done by almost all organizations that are set up. So opportunities are there actually as in the private practice. I've seen in Kenya, also in East Africa. I believe the same is across the African continent. And also, there are also opportunities in the field of you can work at the IP registration office in your local country, or there's also the is it the Aripo, the one in is it Harare? I might be getting it wrong, but I think it's just around there. So the opportunities across either working in the private sector or working through these registration bodies that register these IP institutions. And also I've seen in my country, in the judiciary space, they are now trying to position judges in certain fields. Like that's not to say that judges can still handle something else, but they're now being armed with skill sets to now be able to give a proper decision, to make proper decision making with regard to intellectual property matters. And I remember even in the US, there's a statement made by I don't know, one of the associate judges, and there's a time she said she's not per se an IP expert, but you see that already rings a bell about educating judges in terms of the understanding the IP field. So you can imagine if you want to transition to be a judge, and you have these unique skill sets, because I've seen that in Kenya, people who have done tax law and who have done different unique fields, whenever they come up for these judicial positions, when they come with those strengths, they usually are looked at favorably because of the skill sets they bring on board to determine these unique issues of IP. So I would say it's IP is fast growing, and as I said, like startup companies, They want people who can register these trademarks, copyrights. Patents is not very much, but there are few patents because patents is about the design elements of it and how unique it is and adds utility. So I would say these opportunities across board. So for me, I've seen that, and there are people who have specialized solely on IP and they are making a killing. So need not fear. There are opportunities in the African continent. What you just need to do is to reach out, just understand what needs, what are the common IP areas that you can easily venture yourself in. And I will tell you outrightly, trademarks is the quickest because of everyday companies coming to register their logos and as such. So I think that will, with that information, you would be able to see that opportunities are out there.
And as far as your second question, let me first say that I want to recognize the comment by that Brandon Craig has left in the chat. Brandon is an attorney here at the University of Cincinnati and has been good enough to host a number of our LLM students as legal interns in his office. So and I particularly appreciate this comment saying that our LLM students have brought wonderful perspectives to the work with his team and his office. And that is really the way that we think about the opportunity with this program overall. So the way that we here at University of Cincinnati College of Law look at this wonderful LLM program and our opportunity to bring in students from all over the world and bring folks together is we just really celebrate the opportunity that creates for exchanging perspectives. So thank you for acknowledging that, and thank you for all of the work that you have done to host our our interns. Now, the question about visas. As it happens, for this incoming year, our incoming cohort of LLM students have all had relatively easy, successful times in terms of getting their visas. But certainly we've all seen in the news that there have been some roadblocks put in place that are going to make it difficult for students from certain countries or regions to get visas to come and study in the US. These things there's been a lot of change over the last 6 months or so, and I anticipate that there may continue to be changes in both directions, maybe making things more difficult, maybe hopefully making things easier. So my best advice would be to contact the Education USA office in your country or in your region. Education USA typically has an office at all of the embassies, the US embassies, and their job is to help guide and inform folks who want to become students in the US. So that's a wonderful resource to start with. And if there are any particular questions that we might be able to help you with, you are certainly welcome to reach out to us. I've left my contact information in the chat, and so has my colleague, Mika Clincy.
Right. Thank you so much, Nora. I hope that answers the question. If there are any other questions, we have a couple of minutes. We can take them before we leave. Meanwhile, we are so grateful for everyone who has really taken our time to participate in this webinar tonight. We hope that the session has been quite informative, and we hope that you can actually, make wise decisions. We'll also, if you don't mind, Stephen, you can maybe drop your email in the chat box. So if anyone has like any other personal question, and you may never know, this is also like an Alumni Connect event. There are some alumni here. You may need some assistance in legal work in Cameroon, in Kenya, and you just know the right person to reach out to. That has really helped me a lot. Yeah, because I know that, okay, if I have a fire and I need some assistance in East Africa, I can reach out to Stephen. If I have some work that I need to do, I can also, reach out to any of our colleagues in any part of the world. So that's the amazing thing about being in a system where you meet people coming in from different parts of the world, right? You build your network, and it can really bring amazing career growth opportunities. So Nora, if you don't mind, I think there's no question again. So can you just give us a few closing remarks, then we can leave?
Certainly. Well, one of my favorite pieces of advice to give to individuals who are thinking about pursuing an LLM in the US is to talk to folks who have done it before. So talk to some of our graduates, talk to others you may know in your communities who have completed LLMs in the US. A very easy way to get in touch with people nowadays, of course, to do this kind of legwork is through LinkedIn. I invite anyone who's on the call today or who listens to this recording later to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me under Nora Burke Wagner. But even more importantly, on this note, Gwen and Stephen, I so sincerely appreciate your generosity and sharing your stories, sharing your advice, and then even being willing to share your email addresses so that people can reach out to you to have these types of conversations so that they can determine whether or not an LLM in the US, or hopefully at Cincinnati, would be the right fit for them, and then strategize a bit about how to get from where you are now to Cincinnati. So Gwen and Stephen, this is just really very kind and generous of you, and comes as no surprise to me because we so enjoyed getting to know you and having you as students here at Cincinnati. But nonetheless, thank you. And Shelley, thank you very much for helping to organize this very special alumni event. Being part of the University of Cincinnati College of Law Alumni Network, I'm an alum as well. This is a huge asset to all of us. And I love hearing that, Gwen and Stephen have been able to connect with each other, even though they were not in Cincinnati at the same time, and that you have others from the Cincinnati law family who you can reach out to and stay in touch with. So this is really a very special moment in that regard too. And Shelley, thank you so much for making this possible.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And please be on the outlook for the recording. I'm hoping that we can share it via a future newsletter, and do a story. So I was just super excited to get this off the ground. And Stephen and Gwen and Nora, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you all for being here and listening.
Thank you all for joining us. Thank you.